Can we make anyone a filmmaker, a surgeon? He has made like, I think 6 or 7 short films. Not just watch something, but you can explore it, you can move around, you can participate. This is going to impact every single industry.
Welcome to Prompted, a podcast about AI, people, and the creative spark. AI video has moved incredibly fast over the past few years. It's quickly becoming a powerful new set of tools for filmmakers, designers, and creators everywhere. One of the companies leading that shift is Runway. Their AI video tools are putting filmmaking and visual effects capabilities that were once reserved for Hollywood into the hands of creators everywhere. Now, Hollywood has taken notice. The technology has already appeared in real production workflows from Disney to Netflix and Lionsgate, plus supported work by a VFX artist on the Oscar-winning film Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Now the company is pushing even further, developing systems that can generate and simulate worlds that respond in real time with applications beyond cinema. Today, I'm joined by Alejandro Matamala Ortiz, co-founder and chief design officer at Runway, though that might have changed now, hasn't it, Alejandro?
Yeah, I'm recently become chief innovation officer.
Wow, congratulations. It is so cool to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we have a unique way to get to know you at the start of a Prompted podcast, and that is through the prompt. The prompt is where we get you to draw something from your childhood that has shaped you or influenced you or is just a good memory. You get to draw and you have to talk us through it. Can you do a bit of multitasking?
I'll do my best.
All right. Well, let's give it a go. Grab the Sharpie.
Awesome.
And let us know what's in your head.
Yeah. So I grew up in Chile, living with my mom and my brother. And I grew up in this house that was half of a house, half of a ceramic production factory. My mom is a ceramicist, but she didn't have like a studio like in the corner of the house. It was half of the house was a ceramic factory.
That's amazing.
And it was producing thousands of like everyday objects to commercialize. And my memory of like growing up in this place, it was a factory that has many shelves, and these shelves were filled with everyday objects, from like vases to plates to mugs to bowls, on every single phase of the ceramic, like from drying, glaze, final products. So I was playing soccer in these shelves all day and playing with my brother.
That must have been very precarious. I'm sure a soccer ball ended up in some production material.
My mom
at one
wasn't
stage.
very happy much of the time, but me and my brother grew up there, and like the smell of clay, the smell of the glaze is kind of like what I now relate to home. So it's a very fun memory.
That is an amazing memory.
Yeah. Having access to seeing how things are created very early helped me understand that things didn't come from the store.
Yeah.
Things were made by people, but like people like you and me, like anyone could create things and craft them. But the most important thing that I learned is that if you make great things, if you put love into it and you make things people want, they will come back and they will want it and they will use it. So
that's a great philosophy.
Yeah. So being exposed to this very early was very. It shaped me of how I approach life now. So I don't know if I did a good job. I draw. This is a mix of objects and ceramics that I remember seeing in the shelf of my mom's ceramics factory.
I'm seeing some incredible shapes there. A little crack, is that from where
the
little
soccer.
LA? Yep, okay. That's amazing. Well, Katie, I hope you got a good screenshot of that. We are sending it off to our designer in residence, Katie.
Awesome.
Who is going to collaborate with you and a bit of AI to turn your little sketch into something totally different. And we'll see what that is at the end of the podcast. So stay tuned for that.
Amazing.
Right now, I want to go deep on AI with you. So let's get into the questions.
Yeah.
So you dropped out of film school in Chile because it took you 3 years to get some feedback on one of your films. Was that the defining moment for Runway, or was there something else that led you to create a generative AI video startup?
No, I didn't. That didn't lead to right away to Runway, but I think it implanted a seed of what I wanted to pursue. I was a very curious child. I wanted to do art projects, but I enjoyed reading the stock markets and I enjoyed reading the Financial Times. So I had this kind of like dual kind of like personality where I liked the art worlds, but also the business side of things. So I was very confused about what to study when I graduated from high school.
Yeah.
So my first attempt was I went to film school. And I realized that aside of being curious, I was very impatient as well. And I needed to see things right away.
Yeah.
And I realized that I perhaps at that time enjoyed more watching films than attempting to produce one. And because the feedback loop of like having an idea that you want to translate into moving images, it was so slow and it was really hard to visualize something. So I dropped out and I moved to something else. I moved to advertising, which I didn't like it as well. I thought that advertising was going to be a good path because it has this kind of like creativity, but also more the commercial side of things. And I didn't like it. And the first year at school, I started a design studio. So I said, I don't know if school is the place for me. I want to just get exposure to the real things. I want to learn by doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I start creating logos. At that time was mostly like identities and like still printing business cards and stuff like that. And that compounded to start learning more things about things that I want to do with design. And start getting more exposure of like trying to build my own kind of like tools and developing more of like an artistic practice on the side as well. I within the studio, I co-founded a few startups in Chile and I co-founded an art book publishing house.
Oh, cool.
We wanted to publish like the first book of a lot of South American artists. And that led me to the New York Art Book Fair. Where I came here to New York and I met someone who went to my program at NYU, where I met my co-founders, and I was blown away. It was a place that is defined like the engineering place for artists or the art place for engineers. And I said, I need to come here. And I came with the idea of building the tools that I wanted to use as an artist. I thought that I was going to continue on that path. And I made my co-founders were blown away by what was happening with AI. And we ended up making the tools that we wanted to use. The three of us are kind of like frustrated filmmakers. And at the beginning, we wanted to create this tool for us. But then like the whole loop closed with like now when I got exposure to the first models and I saw like I can prompt something and get an output back, even though it looked very bad, it was a shocking moment. Like I have an idea and I can visualize it right away. It was like everything that I was missing when I attempted to become a filmmaker at school.
That is an incredible journey, all the way from Chile to New York to meet your co-founders and then decide that you're going to start a generative AI startup. And this was all in an era where what you got out of the technology was this 256 pixel blurry little image. What gave you the vision to imagine that you could create a cinematic landscape from tech that was so primitive?
Yeah. So when we got to ITP, which is the program that we went to, the boom was on VR and mixed reality. Everyone was thinking Meta was doing this kind of like switch to the metaverse and all of that. But there was the first kind of like papers and models that were coming up on the generative side. And I remember seeing a model that was called Attention Gun. That could generate very specific set of images out of a prompt, a text prompt. Now it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like obvious, but seeing this in 2017 and getting back, you were asking like, give me an image of a burger. And it was giving you a blob, like some kind of like food plate that it kind of looked like something that you won't want to eat. Yeah. You don't want to eat. But it was like, I can imagine that this is going to continue progressing and it's going to get to a place where it's not going to be a single image and it's going to be a lot of images that will going to help us construct a story. And it was true because we still were at school and 6 months later, it went from 256 to 512 by 512. And the next year it was like was the double, and we continue seeing that progress. We were not a research company there. We were just trying to understand these models. But then when we founded the company, we were thinking very early that we wanted to commit to video. This is the area that we were most interested in. And we wanted to make systems, tools, models that could allow anyone in the world to create a 2-hour feature film. At the beginning, we had to start like using open source models. Like we had a kind of like a ML directory where you could combine different or chain different kind of capabilities of the existing models. But then we start growing the company in the direction of like, if we want to pursue this idea, we will have to create our own kind of like full stack solution together.
Yeah. And it's more than just the models for you, right? It's not really about the large language models or the diffusion models. It's actually about empowering people to tell stories, right?
Yeah, has been always our North Star. I said, like, I see the face of the company on these 3 kind of like questions until now. The first is, can we make anyone a filmmaker? Because we wanted to be filmmakers. We wanted to have those tools. And we knew that so many other people wanted to have these tools as well, that they had good stories that they want to tell, but they couldn't do it. And I think that's what we did. A few years later, we released the first video model to market. And since then, we have been working on the following question, that is, how can make anyone be a great filmmaker? And that's been optimized on the models, getting them to have better consistency for longer periods, better quality, etc. And now we're in this phase where we are thinking more what comes next and what are the new ways and we can tell stories using the same technology.
And how has that turned out, making anyone a filmmaker? Like, you haven't focused on Hollywood, right? You focused on the non-Hollywoods.
We started focusing on everyone. Like, our first tagline was machine learning for creators. So anyone who wanted to create something could have access to these tools. But Hollywood and film production studios have been very good at early adopters. And we work with most of the all big studios today and film production companies. And that's getting adopted really fast, faster than perhaps we imagine, like from pitching ideas for visualizing some of the projects, for selling some of the ideas to others, for getting B-rolls, for getting things into production. At all the phases, even for marketing as well, is being used. But I have always witnessed the adoption from people outside of the creative community. I like to share this story that I think is a good one, because I know someone who is a doctor, a surgeon, and he has always been wanting to be a filmmaker. Yeah. But he went on the path of being in medicine. So you can imagine that for someone like him who wanted to tell the stories, but it went to a different path. Like, before, creativity was kind of like centralized to who is in the creative industry, but now it got expanded to other people that is also creative, but perhaps for some reasons they're doing something else. He has made, like, I think 6 or 7 short films. He has been participating at the film festivals that are now like happening with AI or without AI. And he's really good storyteller, and he's having the time of his life, like making the films that he wanted to do.
Is he still a surgeon, or is he now a filmmaker?
He's still a surgeon, yeah.
I feel an incredible kinship with both you and Runway, because that is also Canva's mission. We want to empower the world to design and bring as much creativity to people who haven't been able to access it before. And Canva is an amazing tool to do that. And it is incredible when you see someone who's just unlocked by a new tool that they can pick up to express themselves easier, faster, in a way that they just couldn't do before. And it lets them achieve goals that they just couldn't imagine.
Yeah, 100%. I have had the chance to travel to different places to share more about this, to places where until now it has been really hard to produce projects like films, like in Chile. And every time that I go to those places, they're really happy to have these tools in hands now, because the stories that they always been wanting to tell is now possible. Maybe at the beginning in a short format, maybe as a short film, or maybe expanding an idea that they already started, but things are getting out of the out of the shelf and they're getting produced in one way or another.
When you first started Runway, I imagine it wasn't super competitive in the video space, but we now have things like Google's VO3, we've got Sora from OpenAI. Seems like there's a lot of competition in the video space now. How do you keep up? Like, how do you stay ahead? It seems like there's massive innovations week on week.
Yeah. First of all, that's a great sign. Is a validation that as I said, we released the first video model to market, and it's been great to see that other people have followed that. It's a signal that there is a market, there is appetite, that people are using and wanting to use these tools. And I think one thing that has characterized Runway very well, that we try to push for what's next every time. And I think we're not playing this game of like seeing what everyone else released to the market. And since we formed the research team, we have always been trying to pursue what is the next best tool that makes sense for artists, for creators, for the audience that uses our tools. So I think it's great to have options. And I think most specifically for artists, it's great that they can have many tools at their disposal. So for a final user, it is great that they can have options, but we are always been pushing for something that hasn't been created yet, or from a different angle that can provide value to the workflows of the users that we have.
And that leads into something that you've announced quite recently, which is Runway's move into world models. Can you describe for people who mightn't be familiar with what a world model is, what it actually is and how you're approaching it?
Yeah, so we do see our video models, the video models that we have today as a small representation. They can simulate a small representation of the world, but they're limited to. They have some constraint. They can simulate the visual aspects of the world, but they lack some of the other understanding of the world itself. So world models are a type of like research that aims to have a better representation of the world itself by understanding not just the visual aspects of the world, but also the physics, the continuity, the causal effects of what happens when you move something in a world and what the interaction between objects. So these are models that are training a lot more types of data, not just on image, videos, and text. It can understand, or they can be trained on those, but also with sensors data, with experimental data, with data that comes from experiments, from robotics data, and you can have with that a bigger representation. You can aim for a bigger representation if you want to simulate the world. And why we want to do this? Because we do believe that these have the potential to have a positive impact in very different kind of industries. So the first one is entertainment, art, film, and creation, which is the one that is at our core. You can imagine here that if you want to create scenes that have like very extreme motion, or that things move really fast, or the camera wanna moves in a space, it can have a better understanding of how to do that within these worlds. You can use them for other areas such as gaming, for instance, where you can not just watch something, but you can explore it, you can move around, you can participate. And I think that's the most interesting area where you can imagine to start combining storytelling with kind of like a game type of like format. And the third pillar is for robotics, is simulating pieces of the world to help robots understand multiple different type of tasks at once that they haven't yet been trained on. So instead of like creating videos for humans to watch, creating videos for robots to watch and learn about the world.
How do you treat to model something like physics? Like, do you put it through a Physics 101 university course, or do you get it to infer it from some sensor data that you give it?
This model learns by seeing the world and understanding how the world it works. It's the same way that we understand. If I pour this water through the floor, many times you'll understand that the floor will get wet and there's gravity and all of that. So if you start training these models with a vast majority of data and with more type of data as well, these models are really good at understanding how the world performs.
So do you give it a video of it pouring water on the floor and then say this video is connected to some sensor data that talks about wetness on the floor? Like, how does it work?
You give it millions of pieces of information, mostly in this case videos, and models start to, by watching them all over in different places and understanding the correlation between them, so it understand how the work performs. You can start adding more layers of data to allow it to understand other kind of things and correlate between this is happening visually, but this is how you describe this action, or how this is how some kind of like movement can be tracked. But I think we're still very early in that phase. We're still taking it from the place where you can allow the models to watch many different kind of like actions that happen in the world, and we're learning that very good to understand how things work in the world.
People are still creating amazing videos on Runway, and you actually started an AI film festival to showcase all the incredible stuff that they're showing off. How many have you run now?
We have run 3 of them. We're preparing for the next one. We are kind of like expanding from just showcasing purely just film, because we have seen that it is expanding as well to other domains like gaming and more physical kind of experiences as well. So we will be celebrating more than just films. But we started this because the first year that when we started the company, we started thinking about we should do a film festival. At that time, we call it the Synthetic Film Festival because, well, at that time we were talking about machine learning as synthetic.
Yeah.
Now it's AI and different. But we always wanted to not just to provide the tools and the systems to allow anyone to create this feature film. We also believe that it's our role to empower, to educate, to give the resources for people to understand how to use this and to celebrate the ones who are embracing this from the beginning. So we have done a very different kind of like initiatives in that front. One is the film festival, where we started, I believe, with, I think it was 300 submissions the first year. And I believe the last one was 6,000 submissions.
20x growth.
Yeah. And it's been great. I think I totally recommend going to AIFF.com and watch the latest films there. We have been seeing this progression of like at the beginning, perhaps there was a little bit more meta talking about AI and films about AI. Today we see stories about really anything that are getting done with these tools.
Are you seeing indie filmmakers do stuff with AI and storytelling that Hollywood isn't even thinking about?
I think more of that in this kind of like mixed type of formats that are popping up, like this mix of like gaming and storytelling, where we're starting to see kind of like artists pushing for what is next. Like, I think there is some kind of like experiments there with VR and mixed reality and headsets of how we're going to experience these stories. But I think what I'm seeing in Hollywood is that more projects are getting greenlit. I think it's an industry that unfortunately got really expensive to create anything. Mm-hmm. So many projects have been just waiting there to be able to get done. And I think now they're seeing an opportunity to start exploring how to produce them faster and cheaper in some cases, but also many more of them at the same time.
In a world where anyone can create anything, where a surgeon can create amazing films, what actually differentiates storytellers from great storytellers?
Well, I see this debate right now I guess mostly in the internet about like taste is everything in this era, and I think it's great, and I think it's true. But I think in the case of storytelling, stories will always win. Like if you have a good story, a compelling story, something that people want to watch and make sense, I think that will always be the key piece of any kind of like project for storytelling. But I think the most important question to me is to, as a storyteller, as an artist, as a creator, is to take these tools and shift a little bit the perspective of how you can use them. So instead of like aiming for creating more films as we have been creating over the past 100 years, how differently can I use these tools to create new ways of stories? And I guess similar to what happened with Georges Méliès when he took the same camera that the Lumiere brothers used, he was not trying to record reality. He asked, can film show us what doesn't exist yet? And that created narrative cinema. And I think it was the same tool, the same access to the tool, but a very different question that led to a completely different outcome. So in my opinion, what will make a great storyteller in this area is the ones who are thinking, what if I do something different with this?
How are you personally using Runway? Like, do you use it in your everyday life?
Yeah, I use it. I have to dog film every day. So,
good founder.
Yeah, I continue trying to make small projects. I made a short film, and it was our first short film that we did at the company. It's called The Orange. This was done when we didn't have an AI video yet. It was made with an image model that I created frame by frame, each of the frames of the story.
How many frames in total?
Oh, I believe it was like 500.
Okay.
It was a very short film. It was a story of an orange that falls from a tree and goes explore the world. It looks terrible. It's kind of like the same feeling of the 256 by 256 output that we were seeing at the beginning, but in video, it's like a very pixelated kind of like film. But I tried to do a new version of that on every single model that we incorporate into the platform. So even with the models that we have, or now we have third-party models to complement the workflow within our application. So I tried to create an extension of that original film every time.
Everyone's talking agents, of course. And how do you see agents and agency working within Runway?
Yeah, that's something that we have been exploring for a long time already. I think the world of agentic approaches is fascinating in all areas, in building software, most specifically than anything. I think on the creative industry or the creative space is a little bit, we will have to understand how to use it well, because we started the company making tools that we wanted to use as creators. We have never wanted to create solutions that are one click and you get the full output back. We wanted to create tools for people who wanted to tell the stories that they have in their heads.
Yeah.
And I think there's some agentic approaches that can optimize and automate some of the processes that a creator might have when they're attempting to create a project like that. So perhaps you can have some kind of like agentic solutions to help you draft or create a sequence of a specific scene that perhaps might take you very long time and money to create, but perhaps it's not to create the whole full project yet. I think human in the loop in the case of creators is going to remain really crucial for what we do.
Yeah, it's very important because creativity isn't a button. Creativity is a process, and it's one that can incorporate technology into it, but always needs people at the center of it.
Exactly, yes.
So as of yesterday, you're not actually Runway's Chief Design Officer. You're actually Runway's Chief Innovation Officer. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I just switched to this new role. Mostly because building software specifically has changed so much since we started the company. When we started the company 8 years ago, building a startup, you needed to be kind of like single-threaded in one specific focus because building was expensive, was hard. Mm-hmm. You needed to be like scope in one direction because chances of failing making a startup are really high. But today that has shifted too much, like completely, that building and testing and exploring things has become very inexpensive and easy to do. part of my role as the innovation officer is that I'm creating something that we call Runway Labs, which will be an incubator, an internal incubator. We will be questioning how are we going to build the next products using generative video moving forward. And this question is because we have seen a lot of traction and adoption with generative video in film, in marketing, in many creative industries, but we do think this is going to impact every single industry. Maybe some of them are a little bit behind, and we have seen that with adoption in LLMs, but ultimately I think generative video will form a big part of many different categories that we haven't seen much traction yet. I'm talking about healthcare, education, real estate, and gaming, robotics, and others. So what I'm going to do now with this role and the labs is that we're going to explore what are the next generation of the generative video and world models applications. How are we going to build them? And how are these going to impact every single industry? So I'm forming kind of like a small startup within the startup today, where you're gonna go expand broader in terms of like how can we use AI video and world models in different applications.
I love that you're disrupting yourself, and particularly that you're thinking about the organization of your teams as well, because everyone's talking about what do teams look like, particularly software development teams, where now engineers are all saying they're not actually writing code anymore. What does that mean for product building? What does that mean for designers and product managers? And sounds like you're tackling that head on by shaping new types of teams.
Yeah, I think we're in this inflection point that I think asking these questions today might be one of the things that we will look back later and say, like, it was good that we were thinking this very early, and most specifically because things are changing so fast that we cannot afford ourselves to just see how everything changes while we only place one bet. I think today more than ever, placing many different bets, understanding that what are your core bets and what are your most important bets, but placing some other bets and understanding how you can rethink your own processes, rethink how the things that you're making are going to impact different kind of industries, and what phase are we in any of these kind of like steps for this transformation in different segments or industries. I think it's going to be important to start at least exploring right now, and perhaps even disrupting completely our organization, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you expect this organizational experimentation that you're doing in Runway Labs to eventually become what is de facto inside Runway itself?
I don't think so. I think we're still in day 0, day 1 of like what we're doing at our core. Like, I think we still have a lot of room to grow there. But I think it is important today more than ever that stop for a minute and see, well, while we're working on this, the whole world is changing and the whole world is adapting to new ways of working, new tools, new things are popping up every single day. And I think it's important to at least have some kind of exposure, experimentation, and exploration about those things.
You've described designing or creating AI tools as carving rather than building. What does that mean?
Yeah, that was a thought that has been changing over time. So I describe it for me, building AI products felt more like carving than building, mostly because at the beginning, this is 5 years ago, you were thinking in product ideas, waiting for a model to be ready to get into production, trying to anticipate some of the capabilities that these models you thought that they could have. But once you were presented with the model, you started learning that those models were far more capable of doing things that you didn't expect, or maybe for the things that you were expecting them to work well, you still needed like to do some extra processes to get it there. So you couldn't mock up stuff you couldn't prototype too many things on the traditional design phase until you were exposed to play with the model. So and playing with the model for me was carving. It was like I'm taking pieces out of this marble to discover what are the things that I want to highlight or that I want to make with this. I think that has shifted a little bit because at that phase, like these models we didn't know. It was new models that we had an assumption of how we can use them. We learned that we could use them for a lot more things. But today, the expectation is that these models are getting a lot more generalistic and they understand many, many different things at once. And sometimes you approach them knowing that these models will perform well at a specific task. So you can start now building for a model rather than carving because the outputs that you're getting from them are more capable of many, many different things. And I do think as we progress to more models or bigger models in general, it's going to be easier to anticipate or prototype some ideas before you get access to them.
Joel at Anthropic had a very similar analogy. He didn't quite call it carving. He called it skyscrapers versus volcanoes. And he said that we're not building skyscrapers because we're not building from the ground up to some vision that we have. It's more like AI is a volcano that's putting these boulders out that we then have to discover afterwards, after the boulder has landed, what we can actually do with it.
That's a great analogy.
And I imagine that then requires a lot of researchers that are just churning out lots of different capabilities for the AI, and then you're taking those capabilities and turning it into product.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's something that we have been doing at the company from very early. And the way that we have found the best way to do this is to sit researchers next to VFX artists, to creatives, to artists, to designers, to help inform the decisions of what should we get into the product. Because sometimes you can have researchers that are working towards a specific goal, but within the process of that goal, you might discover something that is really valuable for the creative workflow. And when you have someone who has the experience, who have the understanding of how creative projects work, you can take this little rock or that spark from the volcano and productize it to put it in the hands of people. So yeah, but I think we're moving more towards like a place where we will be designing and creating products knowing that these models are going to be good at every single task.
I love an incredibly diverse team because I think that's where the greatest ideas happen. When you have people bumping into each other with different specialties and experiences, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, 100%.
There's been a lot of fear at the moment about job replacement, about automation, but it sounds like in Hollywood, you're seeing more opportunity arise because of products like Runway and the capabilities that it's bringing to creators. Is that true?
Yeah, I think this fear, we have had it on every single technological transition. From recently when like other creative tools were formed, or from the invention of the camera, like painters were like, no, we're gonna get replaced. Then software design, like traditional like illustrators were like, oh, we're going to get replaced. And I think what has happened is that it has created new markets and new economies. And I think that's what I'm seeing right now. I think in the creative industry, I'm seeing something very interesting that is no one is defining themselves as a single type of creative. Like you're not anymore just a product designer. You're not just anymore an illustrator. I see illustrators that are now filmmakers, or photographers that are now also filmmakers, writers who are writing codes or also thinking in images. So I think the definition of roles is changing completely, and what are the things that you can pursue or attempt to do. And I think that the consequence of that is that we will have a new type of market possibilities on how you're going to be able to use this in the job market. And I think new type of roles, new type of titles will emerge, and we will need people who understand how to use these kind of capabilities.
I love the opportunities that are opening up for creative self-expression and all of this multimedia creation from individuals. So it sounds amazing. Let's change gears for a bit. I want to ask you about your all-star creative team. So with your all-star creative team, you get to choose 4 different people. They can be anyone from any era, dead or alive, 500 years old, 200 years in the future. So who is on your all-star creative team?
Well, I have 2 that they might be very obvious as well, but I'm not bringing them for their creative output necessarily. I'm bringing them for other reasons. So the first one will be Pablo Picasso. And again, not necessarily because the amazing work that he did, because I believe he was the most prolific artist in history. So I would want to have someone like him producing.
You want a productive creative.
Yes, every day, hundreds of things, obsessive with creating stuff. The second one will also be an artist, and again, not the same, not because of the output, which I also liked. Maybe I liked it more in the past than now when I was younger, but I think because of his understanding of culture, and that will be Andy Warhol.
Okay.
Because I believe he really understood culture at the time, and he went into very different endeavors, not just on the art side. He founded Interview magazine. He played a lot with this relationship between art and business that I'm really interested in.
He also had a factory, so I'm picking up a theme here of productivity and creativity.
Yeah, I would like to have someone who is a visionary, who can see the future. And for this, I will pick something that I don't know much about her, but I know it enough. This is the person who founded the grad program, where I met my co-founders, ITP. Her name is Red Burns. She was a very visionary person. When she got access to the video camera, when the video camera was used by technicians, by engineers, she grabbed that and she went to NYU and presented it to the dean. I don't remember who, but she was like, you need to get access. Creatives and artists need to get access to this. This is the tool that will help everyone tell the stories that they want to tell. And so that's very in line with what we do at the company. And she founded the program that I met my co-founder. So I'll bring her as a visionary.
A true visionary.
Yeah. And last one, I would like to have someone who can package all of these ideas and help us like have a coherent narrative. This is someone that I don't know much. I just learned about him through a podcast recently, but I found his history and his approach to creativity very interesting. And he's David Ogilvy.
Okay.
The founder of the Ogilvy. I just learned recently about his story, and I'm now desperately trying to seek for one of the rare books that he had that is really hard to find. I think the combination of these 4 people will make a great team.
Sounds like a really great team. I think Katie is ready to show us what she has done with your beautiful sketch and also some amazing technology. Katie, are you there? What have you got for us?
Cool. So I was very inspired by Alejandro's upbringing. Really interesting to hear about, just like storytelling. And I was very inspired by that, like interactive storytelling and using Runway to like generate some really cool media. So here is what I have to share today. So this is actually a generative AI interactive like storytelling based on that little snippet of what Alejandro was saying earlier. So you enter it, and we have like Chief Innovation Officer, very exciting. And this was sort of inspired by like all of the interconnected stories that like drove you to where you are today. So if you click into it, you can like see the generated media, and these video image clips were all built through Runway. I just prompted it sort of with like the ceramics storytelling and trying to incorporate some of like your heritage coming from Chile or...
Holy moly. So there's all these little dots flying around the screen and they're all interconnected in some way with stories from Alejandro's life.
Exactly.
This is amazing. I might need to ask you this to use it for my portfolio now.
That is incredible. I do not know how you made that in under 40 minutes. And you got to use Alejandro's own product. It's perfect promotion.
Yeah.
Amazing.
David Ogilvy would be proud. Thank you, Katie. That is incredible. And if you want to see the results of that, head on over to the show notes page and have a click around. I think we'll try and put it up somewhere so that you can interact with Katie's amazing interactive visualization. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
All right, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so that means we're going to enter our rapid fire question round.
Awesome.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Short answers are good answers. We've actually done something different this time. We normally have a standard set of rapid fire questions, but we've actually asked AI to take a little bit of a look into Alejandro's world and come up with its own rapid fire questions for what it wants to hear from you. So I'm just going to be the vessel for AI's questions. And let's go. NYU film kid Alejandro or Runway Alejandro? Who sleeps less?
Runway Alejandro.
Okay. One Runway feature you're irrationally proud of?
Gen 1, which is the first AI video model that we released to market.
Your design superpower, taste, speed, or empathy?
Taste.
Finish this. My taste is shaped by...
Experience.
Shout out a creative person you learn from quietly.
Steph, who is in my team right now at Runway.
Hi, Steph. One rule you build by?
Move fast.
Finish this. The biggest mistake in creative tools is?
Not trying enough.
And lastly, the question you wish more people asked you is?
How are you?
Great question.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alejandro. It has been a fascinating conversation about filmmaking, storytelling, creativity, technology, how we're shaping organizations, all the things. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Prompted, podcast about AI, people, and the creative spark. If you're interested in hearing more, head on over to our YouTube page or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We also love to hear every single comment that you have about the show, so please put them in. If you have any suggestions for future guests, let us know. We love to hear them. Until then, keep creating.